It's a pleasure to be here, actually, and it's, as the lady said, so I think half an hour ago, someone came up to us and said, okay, can you do a panel? And now we're here, that's great. And we will talk about blogging, because we have some bloggers here, influencers, that's the new buzzword, we all know. And I think it's interesting combination, because I worked for the German National Tours Office before, for example, so I did a lot of blogger campaigns. We met several years before that, and before Tourismuszukunft, and I think we have some different perspectives here. Melvin has his travel to use platform and is doing kind of content creation, putting content together, putting content out there to the customer. Cash is doing blogging for a long time, and Hjörtur, is it right? Yeah. Good. I think you are in between, as I am, trying to get the message across what blogging can do for your business and what blogging can do for your customers and why it maybe fits the gap between the customer and the brand and selling things. And so I like to start the round with a simple question. How did you book your last private travel? How? So tell me about it. How do you find, the destination? What was the process? What was some content sources which are important? Or I don't know.
Sorry for my voice. That's my ITB voice.
Oh, it's already gone.
My last trip booked.
Yeah.
That's
Private.
years ago. It's just business. Even if it's private, it turns out into business because we are full of passion. No, but actually, I'm heading to South Africa very soon. And I was a travel agent, so I did a lot of bookings of travel. I've been a travel agent when the online process started, and a lot of people got informed online and then came to me and say, can you book this? Because everyone was very, very afraid. And actually me as well, like even me as a professional travel agent, sorry, I was like, when I was online, I was still afraid of just like booking it. Maybe there's a mistake of a date or this and that. It took me years really to get into it. And like when suddenly now people book via apps, it's like, wow, impressive. And that's what I'm actually doing now as well. I go to booking.com or directly on the hotel website, airline website, and I book via the app or online on the desktop.
Okay, and how do you find about our destination? How do you get inspired? So what is don't think about your business too much, think out of your business in your private environment. Do you see advertisements or whatever, videos? What is it what keeps your imagination going?
It's always talking to people. So, and that could be digital. It could be like on events like that with friends. It's always sharing travel stories, especially what happened to my trip, what happened on their trip, and suddenly you talk about these kind of things. So my mind is full with destinations I would love to travel to.
One of it? Name one destination.
I would love to be on a sailing boat in the Philippines.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Hjörtur?
Yeah, we just did 3.5 months backpacking with our kids in Southeast Asia last summer. And before we left, we had one-way tickets to Bangkok, and the first 4 nights booked, and that was it. And everything else was open. And then we just, whenever we felt like it, we moved to new destinations, and what we would do is we would Google things. So
really, you Google things?
Yes, we would Google things. And we quite fast found out what were the best resources for information about the region, where we would get the best prices on accommodation, where we would get the best recommendations on what to do and where to go. And it turned out to be Agoda was always the best booking engine, so we used that all over Southeast Asia. And the same blog kept coming up again and again, which was Travelfish, which is an excellent blog about the region. They specialize in information about the region. So and it showed us, it was nice to see it from that angle because like Melvin and Cash, most of my trips are professional. So I'm on business. To see it from the other end and to see how blogging was actually guiding me through all the trip.
Through your whole trip, actually.
Through the whole trip, and we bought this Lonely Planet book, We found it in Phnom Penh for a fantastic price. Turned out to be photocopied.
Black and white.
Yeah, all black and white. But I mean, it was just so much easier to just go on the phone and Google things and see what comes up, and you'd get relevant information immediately. And I mean, stories are nice. I love stories. I mean, it says storyteller on my business card, but practical information is what you really need when it comes down to traveling.
But when do you actually need it, you know? Because you have the different phases when it comes to the customer cycle. And, you know, what I'm getting a lot of question about is from the customer side. You know, when is it necessary, or when does it make sense to incorporate bloggers? You know, because it's something to write about destination and to picture a great picture and to tell a story. You know,
Yeah.
We all want stories. I think it's the most overused word of the ITB, I guess, or something like that. So, but you know, really get to the questions. You know, when, from your perspective, make it sense to incorporate, you know, bloggers in the communication and the marketing process. So, from your maybe professional perspective, but first from your personal perspective. When do you get to blogs? You know, when does it make sense for you to get the information out of it, or to get inspired, whatever?
Well, I think we did another trip, a private trip around Jordan a couple of years ago, which was absolutely fantastic. And again, most of our inspiration came from blogs. And I think it comes down to several stages. The first is inspiration. And most people get their inspiration also from the internet, but that's maybe not necessarily from blogs. That's more from Facebook, what's being shared there. It's from Instagram,
Friends,
it's from Snapchat. Yeah, friends and people you follow. Then when you actually start booking, and that's where the conversion comes in, then you look for the practical information. And of course, the best bloggers, they have both a strong presence on the inspirational channels, and they know how to converse. So they're good at SEO, they rank well on Google. So when people search for specific information, they find their blog post and they can find their how to book their trip. And that makes a good business case for everyone. When you get people like that, it helps everyone. That's a win-win situation.
And I think that's a good question, and that leads me to Cash, because when I remind myself, we did the Youth Hotspots campaign. I think it was one of the first, you know, big campaigns we did in Germany, and I think you were in 12 cities for 2 months, you know, touring around Germany and creating a lot of content, a lot of information, a lot of inspirational content, but also really informal, you know, information content. And at the end, you know, we had all the content online, but we also put it in travel guides, so in online travel guides, and it was solely your content, so no destination content. And I think that's the thing, you know, when you're thinking about blogging, working with bloggers and all the stuff, it's really worth to think it through in a way. When does make some content sense along your, you know, customer journey, along your campaign? And maybe you can, you know, share some of your thoughts.
Well, Catharina was mentioning I did this amazing road trip going through Germany. This is 4 years, almost 4 years, 3 years ago.
4 years.
So just 4 days ago, I got a tweet from a lady who is going to Stuttgart, and all the guides I read on my blog are 48-hour guides, because that I find is a format that people like when they're visiting a destination, the typical length of time. So she tweeted and said, "Oh, I just saw your 48-hour guide to Stuttgart. It's really, really handy and helpful, the tips that you gave me in this guide." And this is content that was produced 3 years ago that is still proving useful and relevant. And that's the key thing with blogs, is that when you publish a guidebook, it goes out of date after 6 months. If you have a blog, you can just quickly update the prices and details, and you can constantly keep the content relevant for the user. So I'm going to Poznan. So you were asking the question of what did I use to book the last trip, and I used Airbnb. And I Googled around, and somebody recommended this beautiful Airbnb, and I found that. And then when I was Googling about cool things to do in Poznan, there's a guy called Lawrence Nora, who's a fantastic photographer, and he has a website called Finding the Universe. So Lawrence had been on a press trip to Poznan 3 years ago, and all his tips are right there on page 1 of when you're looking for cool things to do in Poznan. So I didn't even know he'd been there, and I started referencing all his tips.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I did was to go on Instagram to have a look at where the cool places I could Instagram. And then again, there was 2 or 3 bloggers popping up on Instagram. So it's present in every cycle of the customer journey now.
And I think a really crucial thing is content. As simple as it sounds, but that's what you put on your blog. That's what you put on your website. That's what you make an ad out of it. That's what people find, what people share, what people comment. And that's the one thing which differentiates you from all the others, from all the noise out there. And so it's sometimes a little bit surprising, because when talking about blogging, it comes up to followers, it comes up to funny videos, I don't know, huge Instagram profiles with a lot of millions of followers, to be honest. And but from my perspective, and I think you maybe agree with that, it really comes down to content, because that is the thing you can use not only when someone is in a destination, not only when you're providing maybe a longer blog post afterwards. You can use it a year after, 2 years after. You can put it, again on your website, and you can make it in an advert as well. But it's that one thing which people will find, and which people search again and again, and which you can reuse again and again. And so, from your point of view, what is the future of content? So, when it comes to the format, regarding blogging as well, and why? So let me know that. Who wants to start?
Well, if we're going to speculate about the future of content, of course, one of the new hypes in content is drone photography. And you get some amazing shots from angles you could not even dream of before, maybe through a very expensive helicopter shot. And of course, this has brought a lot of fantastic images that are new to people and grab a lot of attention. Now, if you think about the trends in technology, there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. So we can speculate, will we see travel blogging bots who will take over content creation? And what will that do to the travel blogging world? And I think that will be interesting to think about. The noise it can create, and how can you then get what is authentic and what is just some rubbish that's created by robots.
And even another question for you too, as well. This question, and another one is live content. It's a total different story to producing a long text, to put keywords in it, to think it through, to create pictures, to create great videos, of course. But when it comes to live, you have to be on there, you have to be on site, you have to have, the readiness to ask questions. It's a total another kind of medium to interact with your followers and with, the customer overall.
I think it's actually not just about content, because content is, like you said, obviously the most important, and it doesn't matter if it's like Instagram, if it's like a video or photos. There's pros and cons for everyone. I think what will be the future is the question of the devices. So right now you see the 360 videos going up. Like half a year ago, the products, the videos, the cameras were not really good yet. So they got really good now. Now we have the problem that the devices to watch them are not really there yet. So they will improve in 2-3 years' time. They will take over in 5 years' time. Like in 5 years' time, you will sit on your couch with the goggles on you, watching a video, which is very, very unsocial, because you're at home. Obviously, you want to sit with your family. What is already happening now, that you can, at the moment you turn around and you see your partner there, maybe even watching a different movie, but you can see them. So they take them into your goggles. That is like what is, oh man. So that is like happening in the next couple of years. So it's a device, and the next device is actually a hologram. So you don't want to, you don't even sit in a virtual world anymore. You get that virtual world into your room, and then it gets social again. And even there is already like this, the beginning. This people trying stuff like that, and it's like, so content is.
But still, you need something to show.
Yeah.
So.
It's all about content. I always love to say, everyone knows that content is king. I always say content is king and queen, and they're having sex and making many princesses and princes. It's all about content.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to differ. I know I'm not a huge fan of bots. I think it's a current fad. It's a current fad, of course. It's a current fad. It's a piece of technology that's available to the industry. But I actually see the future technology will be there and it will be complementing, but it won't replace human personalization. I can see actually a trend where people are actually getting really fed up of how technology is taking over every aspect of their lives. And there's actually a bit of a, you could say, a revolution taking place, a silent one, where cafes nowadays are no longer allowing people to use their phones in the cafes. We actually have a cafe that's opened in Portland, which encourages people not to use their phones. So it's a completely phone, Wi-Fi free zone. And you think that this cafe would lose a lot of business because they're telling people not to use their phones. But thousands of people are going in here and talking to people. And that's what is missing in travel nowadays, is everybody's looking. I was on the S-Bahn on the way to here. Everybody's looking at their phones. And I just don't see people being happy. I think this is where I think we have to be very careful.
Sorry. Yeah, because that's exactly the question. Because you know, it will not take over everything, and it will not take over your writing or whatever. No. But maybe some stages in between, where where the customer thinks it is necessary or it's good to use it. As, for example, we see a lot of testing with Facebook Messenger bots, so small computer programs speaking with you, but not actually speaking with you. And imagine you're in Facebook and you're in Facebook booking, you are in Facebook searching, when you use that Messenger bot. And it's, for example, Kayak do it a lot, or they test a lot with the Messenger. And they say it's a nice way to get to the customer after they have booked, because before they had not really a chance to get in contact in such a direct content, and to give them information in between and to guide them maybe a little bit through the destination, whatever you can imagine with such a direct connection. So the thing is, I think we really have to talk about these things because they're there and it's not just the future somewhere. But maybe we should talk about how can you, use it maybe in a kind of additional way.
I create a bot of myself.
Yeah.
There'll be an artificial intelligence version of me sitting somewhere, botting, spouting out content to all of you guys. What are you going to say?
Well, I was just, when we think about just travel technology, and you were talking about the virtual reality, we were talking earlier about drones. One aspect is combining this, and we can offer teleportation in a way. So imagine you have virtual reality goggles, and you can connect them to a drone that's located somewhere completely different. Let's say it's in Petra in Jordan. And then you can actually remotely fly it live and see what's happening right there, right at that time. So that would be like a new form of traveling, which is quite sci-fi, but the technology is there already. It can be done.
It sounds stalkerish almost, man.
But seriously, can you imagine to have a own bot, from your blog? Why not?
I love technology. I think it's an aid, but I just don't think technology can replace. I just feel the reason why people love bloggers. I like to think that because they say someone human, someone who's reachable, approachable, somebody you can have a conversation with, and you can talk with. And I feel that all these travel companies that are using these bots, they're missing the point. I feel customers are trying to tell them, we want you to be more personalized and more human with us. We want the human touch back, and I
Well,
feel...
you describe, like, oh man, is that on video? Okay.
I will translate it.
So you describe an experience, like when you taste something. That's what the blogger does. You can say what you smelled. A bot can't do that.
Precisely. It's about the senses. And I mean, we've got 5 to 6 senses, depending. And, and I mean, there are things, no matter how advanced the technology has become, there are things you cannot experience unless you're there. And that will not be taken away. And I think that will be an increasing part of the experience. And why, like, food tourism is on the rise, because it's another sense you add to the experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe it could be a fit of inspirational stories, personal one, and then some information in between, which is helpful, which is, you know, in a way guides you to the highlights in your perspective, whatever. So I think it's not one or the other. So we should maybe think about some good ways to combine it. But we open up the last 10 minutes for questions. So here are the guys, you know. Knowing a lot about blogging, knowing a lot about, you know, international marketing.
And we can talk about
embarrassing
travel stories if you want.
Oh yeah, private questions.
Yeah, everybody's nodding their head like, yeah, it sounds good.
Who works with bloggers before? Hands up. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Can you say why? Yeah, you. Sorry, you're just the only one in the back. Wait for the microphone.
Hello. I work with an agency that works with a lot of destinations, and just going back to what you were saying about that personal experience, I think bloggers do that better than anyone else, and so that sort of one-to-one connection that you can make with with real travelers, I think makes a really big impact.
So, and what would you say were your main benefits? Because we had it in the title of this panel. So the main benefits for you, just apart from the personal experience?
Sorry, can you say?
The main benefits of working with bloggers, apart from the personal experience you described?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I focus on social media, and I think bloggers are really great at the social media part of it as well. So it's not just about the long format content that they're really great at producing, but then kind of engaging with travelers one-to-one. So I think rather than working with traditional journalists, where you kind of know you're getting that one, article in a magazine, when you work with bloggers, you're getting, all different types of stories, whether it's an article on their blog, Instagram photography, Twitter chats. There's just more ways that they can connect with people than, say, a traditional journalist can.
Okay. Thank you. So still some question, or would you like to add something?
Yeah, well, just when we're thinking about the benefit of working with bloggers, because I work a lot with bloggers, and one aspect that I find is often left out is the value of SEO. It may sound old-fashioned because it's been in the discussion for a long time, but still it's very often forgotten, especially with all the new media, which doesn't offer any benefits for SEO. I did one campaign with CAS some years ago, which is a new hostel that was opening up. They were very new, so they wanted to get ranked pretty fast as a hostel. So we picked out bloggers that were writing about hostels. And if you get a link from a blog about hostels to a hostel, it helps you rank for hostels. And these are simple things, but they're very often forgotten. And so you need to think about all these aspects when you're picking out who you should work with. What are they writing about? What are they specializing in? What can they offer you besides just, live publicity right now or their followers? How do you have to think about the whole supply chain? How do you go from inspiration and publicity into conversion and return on investment? And I mean, I know this is an old and tired discussion, but it's a very important discussion. And it becomes just more important. And the technology that we're seeing, it's tricky because it can both ruin good content and good personal relations, but if it's used in the right way, it can enhance it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think especially the first, actually from my experience at the moment, because there's so much talking about technology and so much, trying out something that overall it comes down to the same question again and again. What does the customer want? And what does the customer need? And I know it sounds so simple, but really, especially also maybe you have the same experience in destination marketing and so on and so on, and that's why it's so worthwhile working with bloggers. Think about your product. Think about what makes it special. Think about just to step maybe a little bit back from using another social media channel. So thinking about the why, we had it in the Millennial panels on Wednesday, because overall, with all the content out there, with all the content produced by you guys as well, you have to deliver a kind of answer and a kind of relevancy, which you can definitely support by bloggers or emphasis by bloggers. But I think really, we should really. Clear our minds a little bit when it comes to whole digitalization and technology discussions, and maybe come back a little bit to the core, to the core values and questions. Simon.
Just a question. In my opinion, people like using bloggers because they're not trying to sell them anything. They're not trying to sell you anything. You're not trying to sell your readers something. You're trying to give them information and tell them about your experience in a destination of an activity or whatever. And that's why people want to use bloggers, because they want to hear what an experience was like rather than be sold. Travel companies use bots because they want to improve a customer experience to make a sale. Okay? So now bloggers are all these dealing with DMOs and brands and all that sort of stuff. They're now being asked all the time, what about the ROI? What return on investment do I get from this? Right? And the ultimate return on investment that anybody wants is sales. Right? So it's how do you deal with that? Do you change your content style to say, hey, I'm actually here to sell this destination now because you've promised your destination, your clients, that you're going to get them sales, or do you still remain your usual character?
Yeah, well, man, every time when I start, okay, get used to that one. You have to know a travel blogger is not a travel agent. So a travel blogger can bring conversions. We have many, many very successful case studies showing that. Still, you can't demand that when working with them. That is just like go to a journalist and say, or like a TV production and say, okay, how many guests did you get us when we live broadcast? Not possible. We bring those conversions, but be careful. We are not travel agents.
Well, I think it's important to remember that one of the things people like blogs is honesty. And if you come to a blog where they just speak extremely nicely about certain things and they keep mentioning them again and again, it loses credibility. It always comes down to credibility. And I mean, we've also got researches that show that when you have negative things included, it increases credibility and it actually increases sales. So it still comes down to, bloggers are personal experiences. And when I'm looking for bloggers for inspiration, I look for bloggers that I can relate to. Sometimes you see, and you know this from reviews as well, when you go to TripAdvisor and you see reviews that are very negative, you think, oh man, I don't want to go there, that's really bad. Or you see another negative review and say, what an asshole. And you still go there. Because you see, it's a person that has a completely different view of the world than you do. So, and I mean, that's the beauty of bloggers. It allows you to connect with someone that has similar experiences or similar expectations as you do. So that is a very important thing, is to include the negative. And don't think that conversions come from just speaking positively about things.
Do you think that bloggers will be there in 5 years? Because blogging is such a big word. You have amateur bloggers and professional bloggers. The traditional media is picking up. So if professional bloggers don't invest, will they be there in 5 years' time? What is with the bloggers who do it now? They will maybe keep on traveling and blogging, but will their content be found?
What will we will be talking about 5 years from now? Will we still be talking about blogging?
Well, I think so. I think we should look at blogging in a similar way we look at the internet. I don't know if you remember the big bubble that bursted in 2000 and the internet was dead. Maybe we're seeing a similar things in travel blogging. All of a sudden, you know, every high school kid is starting a travel blog, and it's creating a lot of noise, and it's very unprofessional in many cases. Some are fantastic, some are doing really great stuff, but a lot of them are not. And it will create a lot of noise until, you know, the masses realize that travel blogging isn't as great as you imagine. It's actually very hard work. And, you know, to be able to make a lifestyle out of it that is, you know, able to support yourself in the long run, you have to do something that's, it's hard work.
So guys, you want to add something shortly? No?
No, I think
we're running out. Okay, we have to go.
One question over there.
One question? The last one.
Speaking of lots of youngsters coming into blogging, etc., we also see a lot of lifestyle bloggers moving into the travel blogging segment. Do you feel the need for travel bloggers to kind of reclaim their territory? Or is it a competition for you guys? I want to hear Melvin's answer to that. I can tell already that.
Well, as an as lifestyle influencer, you see them on Instagram in front of the Grand Canyon with high heels. Do you think they hike the Grand Canyon with high heels? At the moment you look at them, it's a fashion. It's not about the destination. We are about the destination and not about the high heels in the destination. So I see there a big difference.
I think the one thing you can't replace is experience and knowledge. All of the best bloggers that are doing well have developed a huge level of sophisticated knowledge of their markets, and nobody can replace that.
And trust.
And trust, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much for jumping in.